I've been walking 6 miles a day consistently for the past 5.5 years. And in that time, I've gone from being obese down to a healthy weight, and I've been maintaining that for several years now. And in hindsight, I can see that consistently hitting this step goal has been a major factor in my success. So, in today's video, I'm going to give you my best tips for learning how to become consistent with your step goal. Now, back in 2015, I was not consistent with getting my steps in. I would set a goal and I just wouldn't hit it. I'd hit it sometimes, but it was just never really a thing that I felt like was really important. I kind of thought, well, exercise, in order to lose weight, I really have to exercise really, really hard, and walking just isn't going to cut it. And as it so happened, at the end of 2015, I was dealing with a back injury, and the only exercise I could really do pain free was to walk. And so that was the point at which I got consistent with a step goal. And as it so happened, once I got consistent with my steps, I also became consistent with intermittent fasting. And in hindsight, when I look back, I really think that a big factor was that just by getting consistent with one thing, it kind of bled over into other areas of my life, specifically intermittent fasting. And that is what brought on consistent weight loss. Ultimately, the thing about weight loss is that you can't control the scale on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes the number's going to be higher, sometimes it's going to be lower. And on average, over time, it does fall if you're doing the right things. But on a day-to-day basis, you can control whether you get your steps in or not. And I think that was really important. It was a daily victory that kept me going. And when I say daily, I do mean literally every day. I was getting my steps in 7 days a week. Back in 2016, when I became consistent, that's what I was doing. But since that time, when I started into maintenance, and I lost a little bit more weight, and then I've gone into maintenance again since that time. Nowadays, I do 6 miles a day, 6 days a week. I like to take one day completely off, both from intermittent fasting and from my step goal. And I've just found that that's what works best for me as far as long-term sustainability. But ultimately, it is about being consistent with whatever goal you set up. And the real question is, how do you become consistent? So the first tip, and this is the most important thing, is that your attitude has to change. And it has to go from, it doesn't really matter if I get my steps in or not, to come hell or high water, I am getting these steps in by midnight tonight. And that was really the mindset shift that happened for me. I just said, you know what, this has to become my priority. I am doing this every single day. And, it may seem kind of extreme, like, wow, I mean, like midnight, you're going to be up getting steps in. And that was what I did. I decided, before this, before I started setting this goal and this deadline, there were times that I stayed up till midnight watching, binge watching things like 24 or Lost, and I thought, okay, I can do that, but what, I can't say, no, I'm going to get my steps in instead. Like, that's not worth staying up for. So I just said, that it's important to me now. And that shift in attitude to, it's not that important, to this is my priority, made all the difference in the world. And it made me more disciplined. I had to learn how to kind of think about my upcoming day and plan ahead a little bit. You can only do the staying up till midnight a few times before you start to learn that lesson of, okay, maybe I should manage my time better during the day. So that's what I would do. I would say, okay, maybe I should wake up a little bit earlier and get some steps in, or maybe I should be more diligent throughout the day in getting my steps in. Because the way I set it up was, I knew that it would take me a couple of hours to get my steps in, if I just did them all in one thing. And so I knew that, okay, my kids are usually asleep by 9, so that still gives me the 2 hours. So I have no excuse. And I was very strict about this. I would not let myself off the hook for any other reason other than if I was so sick that I could not stand up and walk around, which never happened, thankfully, but that was my rule for myself. And so on those days where I was just feeling kind of cruddy, I still got up and got my steps in. And I felt a lot better usually by the end of it. But ultimately, it was about that daily victory, and it was really powerful. And just so you know, after I got down to my goal weight, and in the intervening years, I have loosened up a little bit on all that. Again, I take a day off every week anyway. And nowadays I will take off things like holidays, the day of, or if we have certain kinds of things that come up, I'm not as strict. But again, the overarching goal for me is that I'm maintaining my weight in a healthy range. But back to being really consistent. One thing I noticed was that when I was getting my steps in later at night, I started to kind of see that like that could be an excuse, that it was too late at night to be walking outside. So I learned how to walk inside my house. I do house walking, which just means I walk inside. There's no trick to it. Just like walk from one end of the house to the other, or make laps inside of a room. But doing that made it so that, even if it was really late at night, I could get my steps in. I had no excuse. Now, my next tip is be realistic though. Your life likely is very different than mine. I looked at my life and I saw from experience that, as I was moving up my step goal, I kind of started out with like 10,000, then 12,000. Then I stopped at 14,000 because that was 6 miles. And I thought 6 miles sounds good. It was an arbitrary number, but I knew that I could fit that into my day. I was going to have to change what I was doing, but I could fit it into my day. And so I would encourage you to look at your own life and your own day and really ask yourself, is the step goal that you've chosen for yourself workable? Is it realistic? Because it's really better to consistently hit a goal, even if it's smaller, than to set a big goal that really doesn't work for your life, because that's just going to lead to feelings of failure. It's better to just get that daily win. My next tip is to count every single step you get throughout the day. That's one of the biggest questions I get asked is, do you count every step? Absolutely. Every single step. I put my Fitbit on first thing every morning, and every step that I get throughout the day counts towards my step goal. Now, what I found was when you have a big step goal, if you think of it as something you have to do all in one shot, it has to just be a marathon, it can start to seem really overwhelming and it can start to seem like I don't have time for this. But if you just instead say, okay, I'm just going to chunk it up throughout the day, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, maybe 5 minutes if that's all you can do at once. But you can do it when you just chunk it down into smaller bits. My next tip is to rest when you need it. And this was something I was really prideful at first, even though I was obese at the time. And so physically it was more difficult to walk 6 miles. I felt like I really shouldn't need to rest. It's just walking. That's the way I thought of it. But what I found was when I let myself rest, so in other words, like I've been walking for 2,000 steps now, like sit down and have a break. When I would do that, when I got up from my rest, I felt a lot more energetic and the steps seemed a lot easier, the ones I would take after that. I started to learn that by resting, I could actually accomplish a lot more and I could have a better attitude about it too. So I would encourage you to just know that it's okay to rest. Like you're not like doing anything wrong by sitting down and having a break. And in fact, that's one big thing I've learned about walking 6 miles a day. It's more of a mental challenge than a physical challenge. I mean, the physical stuff you get used to after a couple of weeks, but the mental side of it, still to this day, I have days where it is a really big challenge to get out there and get my steps in. There's that bad angel on your shoulder that's always like, well, what difference does it make? Why are you even doing this? What's the point? And it's a challenge to just ignore that guy and say, no, this is important. And what I've found is it's really important for my mental health, for my physical health too. I feel really good. I'm not so stiff. I feel energetic when I do my steps as opposed to when I don't. And of course, it has helped me to keep the weight off. So it's been very important for all of those reasons. But still, mentally, it can be a challenge. And my last tip is to realize that walking is a good use of your time. In the beginning, I thought, well, I've got to make this fun. I've got to, like watch movies. I was kind of having to bribe myself to get myself out there. Like, I need to do this. So what can I do? And I would watch movies. I would listen to stand up. I'd listen to, upbeat music. And over time, though, that kind of got old. And I thought, like I need to make this time. I need to redeem this time. I need to make it useful. And so I would do things like listen to podcasts or, video chat with people on my phone or text people or, sometimes call people. A lot of times when I'm making an outline for a video like the one you're watching right now, I'm outlining it while I'm walking because I find that I think better on my feet when I'm walking around. But all that aside, I've learned that just if I'm doing nothing, if all I'm doing is just walking and thinking, or just walking and looking at the world around me, it's a good use of my time. It's quiet, it's relaxing, and that's really important. So, right now, if you have a step goal, but you're just not being consistent with it, take a minute just to assess the situation. It might be that the number of steps you've chosen, which mine is 14,000 steps, and that's 6 miles, but that might be way too much for your life. You might have a lot, many more commitments than I do. But sit down and really look at your life and see what you can commit to, and then adjust your goal based on that. And then, with that goal in place, focus on getting really consistent with it. Make it fun. Learn how to walk inside your house so you never have an excuse not to get your steps in. Take breaks when you need it and chunk it up throughout the day. But most importantly, commit. Have the attitude that come hell or high water, you're getting your steps in today. So if you have any tips you'd like to share on what helped you get consistent with your steps, leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.